Good day, everybody, and welcome to Light Heal Academy. One of my favorite quotes out there in the ether is greatness is made, you're not born with it. Now, I know some people will say greatness can also be bestowed on you. All right, cool, happy with that. But I believe greatness is made. Why? Because if you spend time practicing something over and over and over and over and over again, you will get exceptional at it. Welcome to our channel. On this channel, we discuss media, video production, sound recording, design, and we hope that in the months to come, you'll get some great value out of this channel. Now, today's title is Go with the Flow, and it is a second video to our previous video on organizing your assets when it comes to editing. Now, this video is specifically going to talk about workflow. Now, before we hit and get into my desktop and I show you what I do, I want to talk to you about 4 reasons why I think workflow is important. The first reason is scheduling and execution. Now, if you have a set workflow, you're starting at point 8B, meaning you're now dumping your footage from your card onto a drive, which you're going to edit your project from, straight to exporting that to the client and delivering the final project to the client. That gives you a time limit. If you do that more and more and more and more with different kinds of projects, you would know exactly how much time it will take you to get from point A to point B, so to speak. Also, you know you have the ability to execute it because you know every step involved and you know what it takes to execute this project and the amount of time and assets and everything you will need to do it. I would say the second thing, and probably one of the most important things why you need a workflow, it gets you started. The enemy of all creatives is procrastination. I'll leave it till later. I don't know creatively how am I going to put this project together. One of my sort of Achilles heel is if creatively I don't know where to go, I procrastinate till I know where I want to go. What workflow does is it helps me just to get started, because there's a lot of prep that needs to happen before you actually start with that first cut of yours, believe it or not. And the third reason I think this is important, it makes you an efficient editor. Now, there's many steps in a workflow. First, you dump your footage. Then you organize that footage. Then you put that footage into your software package, whether that be DaVinci Resolve, Premiere, Final Cut Pro, whatever you're using. Then once you've once you've imported that footage, you need to organize that footage. Then you need to put the footage in a sequence or in whatever timeline you're using to edit it. You've got to color grade it. You've got to sound mix it. You've got to put motion graphics on it. You've got to get your cuts together. All of that needs to happen in a specific way. And knowing when to do what and what to focus on at a specific stage will make you efficient. Think of it like baking. If there isn't a specific process when you bake, your cake is not going to come out the right way. If you're baking a cake, maybe you're baking croissants, maybe you're making a cocktail, who knows what you're making. There's a process to everything in life, and I think workflow will help you just become a better, more efficient, effective, and professional editor. Then the final reason why I think it is important is it really keeps you on track. You know, you've got to import your assets. Now you've got to dump your assets on your drive. You've got to make sure that that assets is organized in a way that makes sense. Then you've got to pull that assets into your software. You've got to then make sure those assets are then organized in a certain way. Then once your assets are organized in a certain way, you need to then go and start your assembly cut. What your assembly cut does for you is you take your best shots and you start organizing that in a certain way. Now, here's a little bit of a tip for you. When you're editing certain things, whether you're editing a commercial, whether you're editing a short film, whether you're editing a short little promo, certain steps will preempt other steps. Now, for example, if I'm editing a promo and that promo is done according to music, I actually, once my assets are organized within Premiere Pro, which is a software package I use to edit, I actually go and choose my music first. Then I communicate with the client and make sure the client is happy with the choices that I've given them. Now, sometimes they'll choose one track out of that and say, I really like this track, or they'll supply me with another track they already have and say, hey, listen, would you mind using this track? We really like it. Let's get into the workflow. Check out what I do on my machine. As you can see here, I have Apple's Finder open on the hard drive that I'm using to edit the promo. And then I have the project file open here in front of us. Now, when I start a project, I would normally go into my customer folder and I would start with the name of the customer. And this way we're gonna call it Acme Product Promotions. This is what this company is called, for lack of another name. So we're going to go with Acme Product Promotions. And Acme Product Promotions works with product promotions for companies, and they help them promote their products better. They're a marketing type of company that specifically works with product promotions. Now, let's say, for example, I shot a promo for them. Where would I start? Now, I've just finished the promo, just captured the audio, captured any footage that I needed. So this is where I'll start. I literally go into the external hard drive that I'm going to use to edit, and I will create files and folders for that. So I have a customer. My company is called Light Hill Studios. Inside Light Hill Studios, I have a folder called Customer. In here, I have a list of customers, as you can see, Acme Product Promotion, Streams and Strides, and SA Image. That's where I start. So I just added that. Now, you can structure this in whichever way works for you. But this is my workflow, and I find that this works for me because this is where I start. When I do any project, this is where I start. So now I have the footage on SD cards. So inside here, I know this is a promo that I do. So I'm going to go projects, because I might do many projects for them. And inside projects, I know this is a promo. So I create promos, or just promo, however you want to do it. And here I create a folder for the project. And this promo video is called Why Us, and that's what they went with. So inside Why Us, I now need to start putting the assets that I have. Now, the client might have given me logos, the client might have given me images, any extra things for the promo that they would give to me via WeTransfer or Google Drive or Dropbox. All of those things are going to start going into here. Now, inside here, I will create a folder called PR, because I know I edit in Premiere, so I call it PR, and my Premiere project folder is going to go in there. Now, let me give you an example of that. If we go into SA Image, you'll see right here, let's just close those ones for now. We'll get to those. That is the project folder name for Premiere Pro. So if you open this up, this project file will come up with all the assets in there. So that's what I do. Then the next one is assets. And then inside assets, I know I have a video assets. And I use a Blackmagic camera, so I know my ProRes files are going to go in there. I also create a file called audio. And I'm just going to, and inside there, I know I'm going to have music for the promo. I might have Foley, but I'll add that later. And then I actually want to rename that a little bit to that. All right. Okay, cool. And inside there, I'm going to have a roll, if I've done an interview, or B-roll, or I'm just going to copy everything in there. Then I'll open up the SD card where my footage is, and I'll start copying it in there. Now, here is the same. If I have any dialogue under my audio, I'll create a folder called dialogue, and I'll copy all the dialogue files dialog files in there. Now, let's go look at an example. Let's go look at the SA Image Online Courses promo that I did. Now, here under Assets as well, you'll see audio. There are all my dialogue. I use a Zoom recorder. There are all my dialogue files, all my interview files. Under Music, here's all the scores that I have. Then I have a folder actually called Images, and there is images of Aletta when she was a child, and then obviously there's screenshots of their website that they gave me that I put in there. Then you have the motion graphic templates media. If you use your essential graphics and you add that in there, if you drop and drag this there, for example, I'm just going to cancel that and put that back. This actually gets stored in a different folder. The rendered files get stored in a different folder. It gets stored under your Scratch disk if you add it to your Scratch disk like that, or your local machine. I like to keep it with the project files. I've actually spoken about that in the previous video. So if we go project settings, Scratch disks, you'll see for this specific folder, it is under SA Image Online Courses Assets Motion Graphic Template. It is under there. So it actually stores it there. The reason why I do it specifically like that is if I had to share this project with another editor, maybe they get an in-house editor that's going to start cutting small little 5-second promos from this promo, and he wanted these projects file, I can just put it on a hard drive, external hard drive for him. Now, what Premiere Pro will do, if you don't specify that, it will actually keep those files locally on the machine. So when I ship it then to the client, and I haven't specifically told Premiere Pro to put it with the project files, it won't ship with the project files when I copy them. And that's when the client gets it, Premiere Pro will complain when you open up the project file, it will actually ask for where those files are. So that's why I do it like that, because from time to time I do share project files with other people, and I just want to make sure that I give them all the assets. Now, so step one is I create the folders like I've done here. That is the first step in my workflow. I create some of these folders I create as the project goes. As you can see, my folders are quite extensive. There's a lot of things going on when I do edit. You'll see here there's an AE here under video. These ones have been exported, and then these are AE projects. So these are templates that I download from Avanto that I sometimes use to create promos and After Effects and motion graphics for clients. It's just the more complex clients want things, I try to use templates. The less complex, I just do it myself. And it also depends on time. Do I have time to do it? Does the customer have budget to do it? Etc., etc., etc. So I make sure that I create this project file and be as thorough with it as possible. And once that is done, I will then come back here inside. As you can see, it's already created that for you when you drop and drag it in. Inside here, I would then come and prep my folders inside Premiere Pro. So first step is prep my folders and assets on my external hard drive, then come into Premiere Pro and start prepping them inside here. So I'll start with the full promo name in the project. So maybe this is, I'll say Acme product promo, that's the company's name. Maybe put a little dash in there and say Why Us 2022, so I know that's in there. And then again, I'll go in there and create, I know I'm going to have a sequence, so I'll create that already, sequences. I'll create assets inside. I know I'm going to have a look and feel. I put normally my grade under look and feel. As you can see, that is just an adjustment layer that I use. And then I'll start populating those. If I have under assets, normally it's audio, normally it would be video, and then normally it would also be images. If I have direct link libraries to Photoshop, Illustrator, I'll normally just create a folder called Adobe in there. Adobe, and inside Adobe then I will create PS, AE, IE, and I'll structure it like that. So it depends on if I'm going to use direct link libraries or not, or in this instance under assets, under video, I just exported the files right out of After Effects and put it right in here. All right, so as you can see, I'm going to delete that. So then I would create this, and then I'd start importing footage. So obviously I didn't have this to begin with. I looked at it. So I created this once I had these video files to import. But what I did have from the beginning is I had the interview files that I had. I had the audio files that I put in, and I didn't have the music at that point in time because I wasn't thinking about music yet. I didn't have the image files yet. I requested them from the client, but I started to prep this as much. I didn't go straight into the editing. I prep this as much as what I can before I go to it. So the first two steps is I prep my files on my external hard drive, and then I prep my files inside Premiere Pro. Now you can prep your files. I prep my project file inside Premiere Pro. You can prep that in DaVinci Resolve. You can prep that in Final Cut Pro. It's the same process. It's a lot of prep. Now once the prep is finished, I do one thing. If I have an interview with different angles, I start with my multicam sequences. I will prep them before I do anything else, and make sure those are set and ready to go. Once they are set, I actually start with an assembly cut that I have open here already. I'll open the next one so long as well. Now in my assembly cut, I literally just put in the 3 interviews that I'm going to use, and from there I rename it and go straight into my first cut. In my first cut for this project specifically, the interviews that we shot together. Now we shot one interview and we did 3 takes. Now the reason why I did it like this is because in those 3 takes they were really good moments, and they were really okay moments, and they were really great moments, and I was gonna sort of weave them together in a second cut. But I started to cut them in here because what you do with a multicam sequence is here, so that you can see how this works. And it's sometimes also a little bit frustrating to find it, and for some reason I can't find it in here. Oh, there we go. So we add that. I think I have to scale that a little bit. We did not add it. I don't think we added it. Let's go try and do that again. Got it. So when I click there, you'll see those are the multicam sequences. So I actually have to now go through them and cut them and make sure I have the different shots in the different sections that I want. So I did that. Now once I was done with that, I actually started to weave these different interviews into one interview. Not only did I do that, I started to put the B-roll in on the second cut. Now, of shots, whether those are reenactments, whether you just shot them on the fly, doesn't really matter. You'll actually start putting them together in your first cut. You'll actually start to put them together in your assembly cut. So in your assembly cut, you'll choose the best, the very best ones that you'll use. From your first cut, you will then add your music, and then in your first cut, you'll actually start to edit some of those shots together. Now, I didn't do it like that because I had an interview shots, and I wanted to get there in a very specific, methodical way. So in my second cut, only in my second cut, I really started to put the different cuts together. But before I did that, I actually chose the music for this. Now, by choosing the music, I mean this. I went to Artlist and chose 5 songs for the first section that the client had to choose, and then 5 songs for the second section, or the rest of the promo. The reason why is the client wanted 2 songs. They had a reference video that they used, and in the reference video they had 2 songs. I didn't say anything about it at that point in time. I thought the client was making an excellent suggestion. It worked for the reference video. They were going along the same lines, and I felt like, yes, let's do it like that. Now, when I started the second cut, I did use only one song, and I felt like it became a bit monotonous. The song did the same thing over and over again. It is a nice song, but I felt like by putting in a second song like in the reference video, it's just going to create those emotional overtones and feelings that I really wanted with certain pieces of the video. So I started to put that together. Now, as you can see, when you scroll through this, there's no motion graphics. There's only, I only finalized the interview cut, everything that I wanted in the interview here. I finalized some of the B-roll that I wanted, as much as I wanted to finalize that. And then I started to add the music. Now, as you can see with the music, I also put in dips where I wanted the music to go softer, where I wanted the music to pick up, and where I wanted to mix certain pieces of the music together. Now, what you can also do, which I didn't do here, which I normally do, but I was in a hurry, and yet again, that was my mistake. You will put in music 2, and let me just put that as well, rename that, and you will put in music 1. It's good to name it like that because when you're going to edit your audio tracks, you'll see it down at the bottom here. You'll see the different, you'll see it actually. So when you're dealing with this, you'll know what it's about. And here as well, it's good to put something in like, instead of audio 1 and audio 2, to put something in like a dialogue. And this is all you do when you're prepping. I should have actually done this at the assembly cut and the first cut already. So when I copy and paste these different cuts together, actually let's put in there, let's rename that to dialogue 1. I already have it. So by the time I'm getting to my final mix, which we'll get to, I don't have to waste time renaming it there because I already did the preparation in the beginning. I can just go ahead and do it. So as you can see now, this is the second cut. Once I go from the second cut, I go from my second cut. That's actually not renamed properly. Let's also rename that. Then I go to my final cut. And as you can see, there's a lot more going on in my final cut. There's a grade in my final cut. There is actually now motion graphics. There's a lower third there. We're actually going to the end. So the final cut is actually, and there's more B-roll in here as well. So at this point in time, I would normally send a version to the client. I actually don't want to edit any further than this. Because once you start editing the audio, which you do in the master sequence, you'll do your final mix. You have to redo that with any audio or any tracks, dialogue tracks that you have to do. You've got to put that in there. So it's only in my final cut I start thinking about grading. I start thinking about putting in the LUTs. I start thinking about, I will actually specifically go to Avanto or something like Avanto. I think there's or Motion Array, and actually go find an After Effects template that I think works. I'll send a couple of options to the client and they can choose one and say, we really like this one. And then I will change it to the customer specific or the client specifications, and I'll put that in there. I wouldn't necessarily focus on that here. Here, my focus in my second cut would be to get the best B-roll over it, to get the music flowing, to get the dialogue at least to a decent level. I'm not actually final mixing at this point in time, meaning I'm not finessing the dialogue, that it just flows really naturally in from one thing to the next, that all the levels are the same, that the music isn't overpowering the dialogue. I'm not doing any of that here, because as soon as you get to that level of things, it actually starts distracting you. Now, yet again, let's go back to the second. Yeah, we are on the second cut. So here, I really in my second cut focused on the whole interview, making sure that the interview and the B-roll flows so nice and that the music works well together. Once I finalized that and I was happy with that, I moved over to my final cut. In my final cut, I started to really do polishing. Now here, about 80% of my editing should be finished and completed already. So I do that. I finesse here and there. I make sure that certain transitions work really well. And then I start to work on this. Now, at this point, I will send a version to the client. I don't send all the versions to the client anymore. They don't understand it. They ask, why is the music like this? Why is the dialogue like this? Why is this like this? They don't understand that I'm busy in the process. I've tried to explain it to clients in the past, and it just doesn't work. Now already I'm so far along that you'll say, Joshua, but now if you've got to add something in there, it might mess up your music. Yes, it does. Sometimes you do have those things. And you've got to gauge with the type of client and the project that you're busy with, where you should show the client what you're busy with. I work very closely with my clients, so normally when I'm done with the first draft of my final cut, I send it to the client, and then I see what the client's response is, what changes the client would I like to have made. If I did a great job, normally the changes are 5 or 6 or 7 changes that I need to make. They are not normally a whole host of changes. Well, that also depends on is it a 5-minute video, a 10-minute video, a 2-minute video, a 30-second video. Normally, I have clients coming back and say, change this a little bit, change that a little bit. Then once I implement the changes of the client, I'll send it back, make sure the client is happy. And once the client is happy with that, I will then do what I call a final mix. Now, you can change this name of the sequence to final mix. I like to call it master. Sometimes I'll just add a little dash at the end and put FM in there, then I know it is the final mix. And in here, I'll literally start working with the audio. Now everything is done. My grading is done. My look is done. Here I'll also, if you go into the final cut, let me just take you back there, take you back to the grading. Here I'll specifically start with working with certain looks. So you'll see, I'll go through specific LUTs. I'll actually go to my interview. I can get the best parts of my interview already there, and then add the best parts of my B-roll. I can do that in the assembly cut already. That's what the assembly cut is for. But that's all that it is for. You're just putting footage on the sequence. Yes, you can put it in chronological order. That will definitely help, but that's all that you're doing. And my first cut here, my first cut primarily was to cut the audio, cut the interviews up to make sure that I wanted the cuts in a specific place. There was a specific reason why this cut was so long, and then it moves to that cut and over to that cut. So that's all I focused on here. I didn't focus on audio. I didn't focus on grading. I didn't focus on B-roll. I specifically only focused on that while I was busy with my first cut. In my second cut, things started to change. In my second cut, I focused on 3 things. I focused on the music. I focused on putting B-roll, so I'd literally go and find B-roll. I focused a little bit on my intro. I focused on my outro. So here I started to focus on more things. When I hit my final cut, I focused mainly on the grade and mainly on motion, any motion graphics that I wanted to use. And then also finessing, making sure how my transitions flow, maybe adding extra B-roll, and then also implementing any changes and any feedback I got from a client. In my final mix or my master sequence, this is the final version. I now come and I start working with the audio. I literally go and fix audio. I make sure that the audio, as you can see here, I make sure that the audio levels is okay, where it's peaking, where it's too soft, maybe a little bit, where it's too loud. I literally finesse all the audio. I make sure that it works really, really well with the music. And then this, ladies and gentlemen, after I've done this, this really is the final cut and the final version. Then I'll export to the client. Then I would do distribution, and distribution in this case is normally to YouTube, to Facebook, to a website, and to a laptop. And there you have it, boys and girls. This is my workflow. And yet again, one piece of advice that I can give you. I break down all the different elements of my edit into 5 or 4 specific sequences, and I focus just on those things in those sequences. I don't try to do everything at once. Now, in the intro, I shared with you what would be the benefits of doing that. Let's go to the outro. I hope you learned a lot from seeing my workflow. All right, everybody. Now you've seen the whole process from A to Z. I want to leave this with you. If you don't have a plan, you plan to fail. So what does that mean in general? Meaning knowing your workflow, going and looking for yourself, hey, just thinking on a broad level, how do I want to work from A to Z will help you tremendously. I want to leave you with these 2 tips. The first tip is try to stick to your workflow as diligently as possible. Be disciplined in sticking with it. The reason why it is important for you to do that is sometimes when you import your footage, you get distracted by maybe putting a lot on it or checking if that one shot worked out the way you want it to work out. Refrain from doing that. Refrain from adding other elements to your workflow that's not supposed to be at that part of your workflow. You will get to it. You'll get to the stage where you can look at your LUTs. You'll get to the stage where you'll do certain things. Why? Because we get easily distracted. Your workflow is a little bit boring. Your workflow is supposed to add a foundation for you to work on. You'll get to the exciting stuff. You'll get to the exciting part of time remapping that one shot and then slowing it down into the other shot, doing that amazing transition shot. You'll get to all of that. Everything else is in preparation to that. So when you get to that, it just makes it more efficient and you use your time wisely. So that's the first tip. The second tip I want to leave you with is trust the process. When you're starting this out, you are going to try different things. It is good to try different things. And I want to encourage you to try different things when it comes to your workflow. You will learn what works best for you. But also know that as we went through it, there's a certain reason why we do color grading at the end. There's a certain reason why we do the final mix at the end. I hope this video added great value to your editing process. We'll see you in the next one.